representation for the county. There's not serving separate grievances. So if you want a complete list with the columns you're really angry about, guys, you go to that document, read through that document, guys, you'll see why the revolution happened. But this is happening, as I said, over a decade-long period, and this is starting to put a divide between the colonies and the British Crown. Now, Philadelphia's role in the midst of this, for much of the lead up to the American Revolution, is a little bit muted. There are protests, okay? There's unrest, as there were in all the colonies, but we don't have some of the, shall we say, violent outbursts that you see in some areas. There is no Philadelphia massacre. Okay, there is no Philadelphia Tea Party, guys, in this meeting. We do see events like that in Boston. Philadelphia has kind of a more muted role. But that changes in 1774. In the fall of 1774, there's a very significant meeting that takes place here in the city called the First Continental Congress. It was attended by delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies, and it took place about a block and a half away from where you're sitting. Down the street, guys, you'll come to a building called Carpenter's Hall. That was the meeting place of the First Continental Congress. Delegates attended from, as I said, 12 of the 13 colonies. Georgia was not present, but the other 12 were here. They're trying to find a path out of this impending crisis. What can we do to resolve the problem? So for a month and a half, we're going to have these pledges of support. The colonies are going to try and work together. They're going to draw up an economic boycott, put pressure on the British Crown. They're even going to draft a petition and sign it, sending it to King George III, pledging their loyalty, but reminding the king of rights and liberties that they feel have been unfairly denied them. This all lasts, guys, about a month and a half in the fall of 1774. Delegates go home, many of them hoping this is going to do the trick. This is going to resolve some of these tensions. We know today that it fails. King George III does not view the Continental Congress as a legitimate political body. He has no intention of really negotiating with these guys. He chooses to ignore them. 6 months down the road, crisis is now at hand. The unresolved tensions in Massachusetts erupt into fighting. The Battle of Lexington Congress, what we call the shock heard around the world. Now, blood has been spilled. A conflict has actually broken out. We've not resolved the problems. Things have actually gotten worse. So now, the Second Continental Congress comes to town. Delegates from all 13 colonies. They begin arriving here in Philadelphia about 3 weeks after Lexington Conference, so still in spring of 1775. They come up the street from Carpenter's Hall. Second Continental Congress does not meet down there. They come up the street and they now meet inside the State House. And what the Second Continental Congress now has to decide is, well, fighting's broken out. Where do we go from here? Do we continue the efforts of peace and reconciliation? Do we continue to believe that this might work? Or do we do something far more radical? Do we cut the political ties? End the relationship with Great Britain? That's treason, by the way, so you're talking about a pretty risky move. Okay. Do we cut the ties? Do we actually declare our independence? As you might imagine, guys, there's some divisions here. Not all the delegates are on the same page. There's going to be a lot of fighting, a lot of argument, folks, when the Second Continental Congress comes to town. We're going to see the building. We're going to see the room, guys, where this actually took place. Now, when you join me next door, we will be heading over momentarily. Just a couple of quick things to keep in mind. You already heard this outside, but just a quick reminder, guys. Bring everything with you. We're not coming back to this room, so any personal belongings, carry those with you, keep those with you. No chewing gum, no open food or drink. That's just for preservation of the building. So we ask that you seal it up and put it away, or throw it in the trash can. That helps us preserve the historic structure. Cameras are fine. Take as many photographs as you want. If you want to use your cell phone as a camera, that's fine too. I just ask that it be silenced so it doesn't go off in the middle of the floor and potentially disturb anyone. When you're ready to continue, folks, you're just going to follow me next door and we get started.
Come here. Come on. There you go. Texas movie. No?
You're right, though. And then upstairs on the second floor, among other things, that's where you were found to discover. So this was an active building. There were lots of debates, lots of discussions here, but they were all about Pennsylvania. That's what we would expect here in the state house. This is not supposed to be the scene of revolution or American independence. When this building was first built, the symbol of the king was on the wall of the judge's bench. Later, to be replaced, of course, by the Pennsylvania coat of arms. But for a long time, the symbol of the British crown. And the idea that you're being here, you're going to be tearing that off the wall, there is going to be a great revolution, and ultimately a fight for independence. The great question is why? Why is that going to happen? What's the rationale, the justification for it? And that's why the events of the 1760s, the 1770s, that's why that decade is so significant in the story of the American Revolution. Because it started with the aftermath of the French-Indian War, and then continuing over an extended period of time, where the colonists feel that everything they admire about this relationship is coming apart. As I said, it's not happening overnight. There's not one single event that has caused the change, but multiple events are causing the cause. April of 1775, all these smaller intentions erupted in conflict, and shortly after the conflict, representatives of the 13 colonies, the Second Continental Congress, they are found here in Philadelphia. They're using the assembly room here at the State House. The Pennsylvania legislature moved upstairs to the second floor, down by the Continental Congress folks using the assembly room across the hallway. But even now, these delicate small 13 colonies, you expect these guys from all these different places, all these different backgrounds, just come together and automatically agree on what the best course of action is? It's not going to happen. There is division in the Continental Congress. Despite the fact that Congress is broken out, not everyone believes folks that this rises to the level of independence. So the Congress, they've got their hands full here in the State House. And they're clashing. You've got some that are advocating that this relationship is doomed. We can't save it. And so the Congress is going to establish military forces. We're going to fight to defend ourselves. We're going to fight to defend our rights and our liberties. So George Washington sitting in his job as commander-in-chief posting. We're going to be fighting for the military. On the other hand, you've got those that still believe peace and reconciliation is a possibility. So they force to get the olive branch position through Congress. And then that would send off King George III, kind of a last-ditch effort at restoring harmony to the relationship. Now, we know today that this does not work. King George III treats the second Congress the same way he treats the first. He refuses to negotiate. He refuses to compromise. Now, he also declares the colonies to be in rebellion against the British crown. So the situation, folks, is not going to improve. Those efforts at peace and reconciliation fall flat. And those that were hoping, well, those hopes got their death. As we move into the new year and start to go through these early months of 1776, it becomes more and more apparent that reconciliation probably isn't going to happen. At some point, there's going to be some break. No one knows exactly when that's going to occur, okay, but there's a growing realization that probably at some point down the road, there is going to be a separation. What kicks this whole effort into high gear is June 7th, 1776. On that day, Richard Henry Lee, who's a delegate from Virginia, he stands up in the assembly and he proposes to the Congress that the United Colonies has now become free and independent states. So fighting has been going on for more than a year. Now, an official proposal has been put forward. We should cut the cost. We should declare independence. What's the Congress going to do? What's the Congress going to do? What's their choice going to be? We're going to talk about that. We're going to go into the assembly room, and that's where we'll wrap up the story.
Well, as soon as you go in, look to your right or your left. You got to fit everybody in. You don't want to stop and pedal.
Don't go in our favor. The Congress needs to make sure the states are willing to unite together. So what they do is they delay the final decision. We're getting closer, but we're not quite there. The Congress pushes back the final vote. But while the Congress is delaying a final decision, they do something Richard proposal, we've got a written document. We need a vote. We need a decision. We need a final choice. That has to vote to arrive with July. July 1776, the delays end. And the first 4 days of July, that's when the final debate, the final arguments are heard out in this room. Now, it's not easy. There's still fighting. There's still arguments. A handful of delegates, even at the end, were not convinced that this was the best possible course of action at this particular moment in time. Some people still felt that independence was a little bit premature. So not every single delegate voted for independence. But the majority of them, the vast majority of the delegates here, they don't see another option moving forward. We can continue the efforts of peace and reconciliation. Sure, we can continue that. But every other effort we've already attempted has failed. They don't see any path to success going in that direction. Because the colonies work by majority vote, majority of the delegates shift towards independence, that allows for the unity that the Congress has been seeking. So at the end of those 4 days of debate and arguments, a couple things happen. Richard Henry's proposal has been adopted. He proposed independence. Congress agreed with that. And the Congress has also adopted the written declaration, which announces to the world why this is happening. We're not doing this just because we feel like it. Okay, there are reasons. There's justification for this. This is what the declaration vote tells the world. So after 4 days of debate and argument there, early July 1776, we have officially made this a revolution. This is a fight for independence. But as significant as this moment is, it's not the end of the story, because declaring independence, that's not nearly enough votes to see this new nation come into existence. There's still a lot of work to be done. For example, we declared independence. We have to achieve it. We have to win independence. It means we have to win the war. The war's not over. The war continues another 7 years. There's no treaty of peace ending the American Revolution until 1783. So we've got a long, very bloody struggle waiting ahead of us here in the summer of 1776. The State House and the Continental Congress continues to be part of this struggle. Not only do we have to achieve independence, we have to figure out a way to govern the country we seek to create. There's never been an American nation. So how are we going to run this country that we seek to establish? Congress spent a lot of time thinking about that. Ultimately, what they come up with is a document called the Articles of Confederation. So by the time the war ends, this is what the fight helps guide us forward. But the Articles of Confederation, although it was created with good intent, it has flaws. And those flaws begin to reveal themselves in a pretty spectacular fashion almost as soon as the war ends. Chief among them is the the fact that the 13 states have almost all the power. The national government has almost no power. There's a Congress, but it has extremely limited powers. In almost every affair, the states have control. The basic idea is that the states cooperate with one another. They work together, and as a result, that helps the nation to go forward. The 13 states could care less about doing that. Okay? They have just finished a long, hard-fought revolution. The only thing unifying them in that fight was a goal of achieving independence. Beyond that goal, there's very little focus that unites the states. So when the revolution ends, the states immediately go different directions. And they're fighting over everything. Land boundaries, taxes, economic issues, the right to coin money, riots and rebellions are breaking out in parts of the country. Shays' Rebellion was probably the most famous in this time period. That occurred up in Massachusetts. People are looking at the scene, and they're seeing a pretty dangerous situation developing. They believe that if this continues, the states could potentially lead the nation into a civil war. This could actually rip the country apart. So what's going to happen here is in 1787, another convention is going to be held in Philadelphia at the State House to try and do something about the problem. Delegates from 12 of the 13 states are going to attend. One state is going to be a holdout, that's Rhode Island. Rhode Island decides the meeting is not in their best interest, so they don't send anyone. 12 states vote and delegates. They are given instructions to fix the articles, revise them, and strengthen them for the future. The met meeting here for about 4 months. They met from the end of May to the middle of This is where you're talking about literally the creation of an entirely new framework of government. A much more structured framework of government, a much more powerful framework of government to try and provide leadership and stability. Now that does not mean it's easy. Think about what's being debated. The President of the United States. How many presidents are we going to have? How long is the president going to serve for? Are we going to elect the president or appoint the president? The states, the Congress, are the large states going to get most of the power because they've got most of the people, or are the large or the small states going to share power because they all have a voice? The Supreme Court, it's never been a Supreme Court. A national judiciary, what's the role and the function of such a body? And that's just the framework of government. That's just trying to figure out that's the basic framework of government. Other issues that are leading to contentious moments. Does the Constitution require a Bill of Rights? Do we put in a written guarantee of rights and liberties for the people? What about slavery? Many of these men own slaves. There are others in this room that have never owned a slave in their lives. And despite the large slave-owning population that exists at this time, there are beginnings of an anti-slavery movement starting to take shape. Philadelphia poses the leader in the beginnings of the anti-slavery movement by this point in time. What's the future of that under the Constitution? These were some of the issues these men debated. And there were others too. Once again, we can't get into everything here, guys. This was over the span of 4 months. No one knew this was going to work. This new Constitution, no one knew this was going to succeed. Because although the defenders write the Constitution, we still have to go out to the state for ultimate approval. After that, we did the ratification process. And then after that process was completed, we had to prove that it actually could function, that this could actually bring stability to the nation. So there's uncertainty here. Some delegates will walk out. They don't believe the Constitution is going to succeed. So some of the delegates actually did leave and went home. But most of the men chose to stay. And the men that stayed here, they fought with one another. They argued. But they also compromised and bargained at key moments. And in the end, it was that willingness to compromise and bargain, at least in some areas, that enabled these men to work through some of their major disputes and find solutions. For example, this is how the President, the Congress of the United States, got came into existence. That was through bargaining and compromise. Now, it does not mean they solved all the issues. If you go looking for the Bill of Rights guide in 1787, you're not going to find it. It was brought up, but these men were conflicted about it, whether or not it was truly necessary, so they left it out. If you go looking for the end of slavery, keep looking. Slavery entered this country because of the American Civil War and the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. These men are all dead by the time that happened. They never see the end of slavery. Voting rights for groups like women, never even discussed in this room. So there are challenges, guys, struggles that abound, even now, in the founding fathers, their work and are leaving the daytime. Struggles and challenges, they're going to continue on. But what this Constitution is going to provide is a much stronger foundation to build upon than what has previously existed. Many of these men believe the articles to be weak and ineffective. The Constitution is not perfect either, but it's a much stronger foundation than the articles. So on September 17, 1787, which was the last day of the convention, 39 men got out of their chairs, and they signed their names here in this room. One of them was Benjamin Franklin, who thought it appropriate to express his optimism, thinking about the future. He signed the Constitution. After signing, he pointed out the chair where George Washington said that George Washington was the president of the Constitutional Convention. That is the chair guys that he used. Carved into the top of the chair, he noticed a half sun. But is the sun supposed to be rising or setting? Benjamin Franklin has made up his mind on this last day. He turned to his friends and tells them that I now have the happiness to know that's the rising and not a setting sun. It's his way of expressing his hopes, his optimism for the future of the United States. He knows that struggles and challenges will continue to confront us, folks. That this is still the beginning, folks, of the nation. There is still work to be done. But he believes that what has been created here, this framework, this is a good beginning. This is a strong start. And Franklin believes that if we can build upon this, we can create a bright future. The nation can have a bright future in rising sun. And needs to rise. The Constitution is still our framework of government. We are still working with this, folks, to this very day. But have we faced struggles and challenges? Of course. The Bill of Rights, that took about 5 years. We had a Bill of Rights by the end of 1791. The slavery, that took much longer. Voting rights for women, that's continuing forever. Not until 1920 that women have the right to vote back under the Constitution. So there are struggles, folks. There are challenges that continue on long after the founding fathers leave us. Long after the founding fathers, folks, set foot out in the State House for the last time. And yet their work continues on. The foundations are still there. We are still continuing to build upon the foundations of the United States. But this is where those foundations first came together. And that is why when that time, this building ultimately did get its more famous nickname. Remember, the founding fathers, they always called it the State House. You and I don't call it the State House, guys. We call it Independence Hall. And that's because in the 19th century, people deemed it necessary to remind people of what had happened. So they created that nickname, Independence Hall, the birthplace of the United States. Now, the events that I just described you down here in the first four books, of course, the most famous events, the most well-known events associated with this structure. Not the only historical events that occurred, many other events that take place. If you'd like to hear about some of those, you can journey with me to the second floor. This is the optional part of the tour, so if you want to access, that's fine too. You'll just be going out the back and that'll be the end of the tour. But if you do want to see the second floor, this is the time here, and it's open. So I will leave the floor up to you. Those of you that are leaving us, thank you very much for listening. Have a great afternoon. Those of you continue, I'll be upstairs.
Yeah, I know. There he is.